Accessing library computer data.
And to make sure history never forgets the name Enterprise.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Pensky Podcast. You haven't tuned in before. This is a podcast where we are running through all 178 episodes of Star Trek The Next Generation, giving our thoughts and feelings about each and every one. Right now we're up to episode 24 of season 6. It's called Second Chances. Directed by LeVar Burton, good old Geordie LaForge helming the director's chair here. Teleplay goes to Renee Echevarria, and the story credit goes to Michael Medlock. Aired back on May 24th, 1993. In this episode, Commander Riker comes face-to-face with an exact duplicate of himself, created years earlier by a transporter accident. It's second chances. We're going to have a second chance to do the podcast over. Not really, but I'm going to bring on my double here, and it's Clay. And we're going to talk about it, get into arguments, and one of us is always going to think that the other one is trying to hold him back. Second chances right after this.
Who are you? Who are you? I'm Commander William Riker from the Federation Starship Enterprise. That's not possible. I'm Will Riker.
May I ask how you got here?
8 years ago, I led a team to evacuate this station. What ship were you on? The Potemkin.
Why did you not return to the Potemkin with the others?
I was the last one out. The distortion field must have interfered with the transport. They lost the signal lock on me. When I tried to contact the ship, I couldn't get through the interference. If you check with Starfleet, I'm sure they recorded that I was lost on that day. That's not what happened. I was the last one out, and I made it back to the Potemkin. You don't believe me? It's not that we don't believe you. It's just hard to see how both stories can be true.
It's just a Riker Palooza for you, Clay. You had your last episode was Frame of Mind, which is Riker centric, and now you have second chances, which has double the Riker for double your fun.
I'm really enjoying it because it's not just Riker; they're getting weird with Riker, and I always appreciate that. So
this is season. I don't think we're at the end of season 6 now, so I'm not spoiling anything. The second half of season 6 of TNG is the best run of episodes the show ever did. Like just a consistently week after week kind of thing.
Yeah. And
they're starting to get to a point where the characters are branching out a little bit. They're exploring unique ideas, and they're getting a little bit weird with how far they're willing to push things.
Which is great, because, I mean, you've been doing it for 6 years. They've been doing like 25, 26 episodes a year, and it's a lot of episodes to keep things relatively the same and have people bounce back from invasive surgeries and shit and mind melds and being turned into the Borg.
Right, yeah.
Every week.
Yeah.
Well, do something weird.
I mean, I guess I don't want to spend too long on this, so I guess I didn't know if I should bring this up at the start of the end, but I guess I'll bring it up now because it seems fitting. The original sort of loosely floated idea here was that Commander Riker was going to die in this episode.
I had a feeling you were going to say that.
And he would be replaced by Thomas Riker, Data would be promoted to first officer, and Tom Riker would take the ops position.
It's interesting.
Would you be pro or con that at this point?
I feel like that's a huge cop-out. Have you ever seen Beer Fest?
Yeah, it's the Beer Fest joke, which I just watched, yeah. He would have started the next episode, or he would have, after they decided to call him Tom, he would have been like, you know what, fuck it, just call me Will. I think it's a little bit easier.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, it's. I was trying to think when. Do you remember what year? What year is season 6?
This is 93.
93. Okay, I don't think it had happened yet, but in Spider-Man comics, the notoriously worst storyline they've ever done is one called the Clone Saga.
Sure.
Where they take a story that happened in the early 70s, or I think around that time, maybe mid 70s, where this villain named the Jackal creates a clone of Spider-Man, and he fights the clone, and the clone seems to die in the fight, and he dumps the body down an exhaust thing into an incinerator to get rid of the body after it's dead. So, so things don't get even more weird.
Sure.
So 30 years later, or 25 years later, they brought this story back with the caveat that the clone wasn't dead, but more importantly, the clone won the fight.
Mm-hmm.
So the clone actually beat Spider-Man in the original fight and dumped his body down this chute. So Peter Parker, the real Peter Parker, has been living a completely different life, and this clone has been living as Spider-Man.
Sure.
And they switched over, so this clone Spider-Man became another character, and the original Peter Parker changed his name to Ben Reilly or something. I can't.
Yep.
It got basically they made a major change, and everybody lost their fucking minds.
Sure.
So much so that the walking back of the story is notorious in its convolutedness to rewrite a bad decision.
Sure. I mean,
that concludes comics history on the Penske Files Star Trek podcast for today. Join us tomorrow when you learn all about the time that Superman actually ran a recycling campaign that said, "Help Superman slap a Jap," which is also true.
The time Captain America or Iron Man told the other one to get some solid dick or whatever that line is, that always makes me laugh. That's my favorite. I can't believe that phrase didn't manage to stick around in the lexicon. I'm going to give you some solid dick is to give you good advice. Okay.
Really?
Yeah. Apparently that's what it meant. Yeah. So.
That explains why I keep getting restraining orders put up against me.
We don't want that good advice around here. Yeah, I'll put the link to that funny little comic panel. It always makes me laugh. Yeah, I mean, the problem with that kind of thing is that it's really just, it's too similar to the line of "it was all a dream." It's just like, okay, like you just uprooted everything for no reason. I think that what I will say about Second Chances is that it avoids the problem there by the episode kind of admits that no matter what would have happened, it would have turned out the same for Troi.
Yep.
Which I think is really, really smart. And I think I think that this episode is interestingly almost one of the best Troi episodes.
Yeah, because she's in it for more than 5 minutes.
And she has a state of she has a perspective on this. She's interacted with. And she comes to an end decision that makes a lot of sense in context of what we've been shown so far.
Right. And I also appreciate that as overall, much like the last one I was on, they caught me off guard a little bit again because they didn't write it the way I thought they were going to write it, which was either second Riker or Curtis
right.
Is either evil or B, he dies. And there was a nice fake out at the end where you thought he was going to die. Because as they were going into that scene, I'm like, oh, he's obviously going to die here.
Yeah.
Because you can't have two Rikers floating around. But then I was thinking, it'd be really cool if they didn't kill him and they just had a second Riker, which apparently they did, even though he never shows up again.
He does show up again.
He does?
Not in TNG, but he does show up again.
On the Deep Space Nine?
On Deep Space Nine, yep.
Ooh, I'm going to have to watch that episode.
He's, I think it was a terrific idea that they didn't kill him. Everything about this episode was leading from the Picard saying to take him on this incredibly dangerous mission to them being alone, to them being in an earthquake-prone cave. Everything seemed to be spelling near doom for poor Thomas Riker. And they just pull it through at the end, and he goes off on his merry way in a way that makes sense because he is just as driven as Riker was, which I guess I'll get this out of my way, the way in the first place. Do you think is there any problem with how he's portrayed after he's supposed to be alone for 8 years? Or do you think it doesn't matter in terms of the episode?
I have one giant problem with the way he was portrayed. And for an episode that's taking a lot of chances and putting something out there and doing something kind of different and weird, I am appalled that Jonathan Frakes did not shave his beard to be Thomas Riker.
Well, he hair colored for men it or something. He put like black lightning on the. He thickened it up.
If they wanted to be true to the two different scenarios, they should have had him shave his beard and be clean shaven.
Yeah. I think.
But
I agree.
I'm just saying. I'm saying that half seriously. I don't really care. What was your original question?
Well, I mean, do you think that he? I think in terms of story, I love everything that they do here, except the fact that him being alone for 8 years and he comes out kind of the same as he was it's slightly problematic. It's not enough to kill what I think the episode is about, and I think what the episode about is more important than my having a hang up of he doesn't seem like he's been alone for 8 years. That's my only concern, because the way he plays Thomas Riker is basically plays Tom Riker as though he's the person who was left behind and no time has passed.
Yeah. Which, honestly, I don't have a problem with that.
Because he hasn't interacted with anybody, you think it's like that makes sense that he would not really develop in any substantial way?
Yeah, and also, so I remember when I was in college, there was a girl who I was friendly with, my group of friends, she hung out with us occasionally. Freshman year, and she changed schools at the end of the year. But then 2 years later, she came back to school, and that group of friends I was hanging out at the time sort of split up a little bit. We weren't really hanging out with each other as much. We had all kind of found, you have your freshman group of friends, and then you kind of find your actual group of friends.
Yeah, it takes a couple of years.
Yeah, but when she came back, she really started acting as though nothing had changed. So she was asking where everybody was and if we were all hanging out and all this kind of, and I was like, it was weird to me at first, but then I was like, oh wait, there's obviously no way she would know that. She's being reinserted into a situation that the only jumping off point she has is the last one that she experienced, which was now 2 years old.
Yep.
So I can especially in this situation where this character is on his own for 8 years. And the only thing that he's holding on to is that he's going to get to see Troi again. I could absolutely see him, trying to pick up where he left off.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I agree, and I don't think it's particularly a big problem. I think it suits the storyline that they're trying to tell here. That's the difference between Tom and Will. And
that girl was Hillary Clinton.
Shillery. But she took along. She really
friend of the show,
friend of the podcast. Yeah, unfortunately, not a lot of Bernie listeners, or they've tuned out at this point. I guess the thing about the storyline here that I enjoy is I think it's really like the best case scenario for sci-fi. It's a very philosophical point that you do through the sci-fi narrative, and I think it's really kind of fascinating about how you can't, no one can go back to that point anymore. It's like another aspect of like time travel in a way or something. Like you can't go back to the way things were. I think it's a really interesting decision on the show's part that Thomas Riker is basically the lead Riker in this episode.
Yeah.
He's in far more scenes. Commander Riker doesn't really have much to do at all, outside of sort of boss him around and get upset with him.
Right.
And I just think I was shocked by how accurate I thought the portrayal of the two Rikers was, in the fact that Data and Worf had that scene. I mentioned in the previous episode how I like pairings of characters. I love Data and Worf having a conversation about something. I just like the Data being inquisitive and Worf giving him pretty much the honest answer that a lot of people don't give Data a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And
the look that he gives him after, when he says, I don't think I get along with myself because people find me hard to get along with, and Data's like, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, he agrees.
Worf shoots him a look. He's like, what? Asshole.
He gives him a look. And I think that how they portray the Riker relationship in this episode feels pretty realistic to me. And I love Worf's line about, would you like to see your double? And it's one thing I think it's a sign of a good episode. I was thinking about after I'd watched it. I was like, what would it be like to have my double? Just basically my double from 8 years ago, which, he would have been 25 or something like that. Like that's it's weird to go back. I would have hated 25-year-old me, I think.
Yeah. Well, what I found really interesting is Commander Riker Frakes plays him very prickly towards Lieutenant Riker.
Yep.
Which is understandable, but the thing, again, yeah, for me too, it got me thinking about things like what my reaction would be, and I think I would probably react a similar way because, everybody has stuff that they don't like about themselves.
Right.
And if you are friends with yourself and you know what all of those things are and can spot them even if other people can't,
Yep.
You're going to think of yourself as an asshole.
Yes. Yep. And that's all you're going to notice about it. And it's just...
And especially if you're in a situation like this where, your older or your other self is a more idealized version that hasn't been, that still is in love with the woman that he was in love with and hasn't been crushed by, whatever Commander Riker has done in the last 8 years.
Yep.
It's a really interesting setup. And the Troi angle is great too because she's put in a really messed up situation too.
Yeah, this is really fucked up. I'm surprised
it's
that
great.
they
I
all,
wish there were more like this.
And that they all go into it so easily. Is no one's ever like, ooh, this might be a bad idea. Everyone's like, yeah, well, we'll see how it goes. Before we get on to the Troi thing, it's the older Riker is basically getting the chance to watch the other version of the life he could have had, right in front of him, which is really interesting, really powerful, and it's sort of a powerful mark on the elder Riker or the Will Riker's character that he doesn't cave to the relationship at any point.
Yeah. I thought that was how it was going to end. I mean, I know that they don't get back together, or at least not immediately, but I thought what was going to happen was Tom was going to die. And then that was going to be like the
his spirit lives on in Will, kind of like that. Youthful...
Yeah, or like Will was going to use that as a teaching moment for him to recognize what he has and what he lost.
Right.
Same with Troi and all that kind of stuff. But it's fucking awesome that at the end of this episode, Thomas Riker is still there. Totally expects to eventually hook up with Troi again. Troi doesn't go with him, but still kind of is like, yeah, we're probably going to hook up later. And then Will Riker's like, well, I guess this is my life now.
He gives the wah-wah eye roll to the camera. Yeah, and I think
if he had kept his trombone, he would have done that. But.
I hope he replicated that thing. Yeah, it's. I think it's a really terrific ending. I appreciate what they did. I appreciate how all the characters sort of react to it, and it's really kind of a heartbreaking episode for Troi in a lot of ways.
Oh, definitely.
I mean, I guess we should talk about her just because they come out right at the front that Riker sits down with her. Will Riker sits with her, and it's just like, I don't want to see you get hurt again. This guy's going to make the same decision that I made 8 years ago. And I believe this is the first time we've got insight into how their relationship ended, which apparently only ended 2 years before Encounter at Farpoint. They hadn't seen each other, and he basically broke it off with her, and she was devastated by it. I guess you could say this is a weakness of the show that they've never built on this. I don't think it hurts this episode at all, but it's nice to finally get that sort of storyline built into it.
I was always surprised. Looking back on it, I don't know how much of my knowledge of this show was centered on how many times I rewatched the series finale.
Sure.
But I remember the first time that I watched through again, as an adult, I remembered thinking, oh, I'm surprised there isn't more stuff with Crusher and Picard. And I was also surprised that there was a lot less stuff than I thought there would be with Troi and Riker. Yeah. Because, I mean, even when you get from the first episode, it's like, oh, clearly they have a thing, but they don't ever really lean into it that much.
No.
Which I always found really surprising because it seems like such an obvious way to go. And maybe it's better for it that they didn't. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it is better for it. I think it's just kind of a weird... It's a weird relationship because of apparently the power of the relationship never seemed to bleed into anything. And I was mostly surprised by the revelation that it's only been 2 years in this episode because
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
When I saw Encounter at Farpoint, they kind of make it seem like it's been like 7 years or something like that. Like it's been long enough where they've moved on. 2 years to me feels like Encounter at Farpoint should have just been them, in bed together the entire. Like I don't see how they got around that. Really, it's just interesting, and I think they pay it off in this episode really well.
Yeah, that's like. That's like breaking it off with your girlfriend before you go to college, and then 2 years later, it's like, oh hey, well I guess we're done with college,
right?
I mean, or at least you know what I mean.
In adult terms, it would have been like your first year of college.
I only went to college for 2 years, is what I'm saying. I don't have a degree, and I live on the streets.
In terms of adult life, it would be like the or college life, how quickly it goes by. It feels like it would be like you start as a freshman, you break up, and then on your like spring break, you see each other again. It feels like no time has passed over 2 years.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's just weird to me, but yeah, they play it off really well with the interaction with Tom Riker, who's been pining for Deanna Troi for 8 years as he's stuck on this thing, and it finally pays off with their relationship gets rekindled. She gets a chance to relive what she could have had. She decides that it's better off this way, and then they end it with, well, maybe, who knows, something might happen in the future, and Tom Riker just rides off.
Yeah, what I really like about it is, Will. Sounds weird for me to call him Will.
It is. I have to think about it before I say it.
Will kind of takes her aside and says, "Listen, do it." First of all, the fact that he's like, "Do whatever you want," is kind of weird. I mean, I would personally feel pretty weird about that, because it's like, what does that say about you?
Yes,
that this woman who you've both apparently. Amicably decided not to date each other anymore, or at least that's what you thought, is like, you know what? I still agree with that, but I'm going to date this other version of you that is the same person, except not as much of an asshole.
Yeah, and
like, it's a really messed up situation. But so my point was, he takes her aside. I think it's in that scene, and he's like, "Listen, do whatever you want, but we're still the same person. And if I had been on that planet and he had gotten off the planet, he would have made the same decision that I did."
Yep.
And they don't lean into that fully, but you get a bit of that when he's like, "Yeah, Picard got me this station on this other ship. If I'm there for 6 months or a year or whatever, then they say family can come and join me." And like, he's still very positive about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But she immediately recognizes that as the same thing that happened before, which is really interesting.
Yeah,
and the fact that when she calls him out on it, he doesn't flip out, because I feel like in a more poorly written episode or show, that would have been like the wedge in their relationship, where she says that and he's like, "Well, I'm not him." Blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Stupid things.
I think that it's like, philosophically, I think it's really interesting, because the show doesn't make this any sort of aspect of free will between the characters. It basically,
more like Free Thomas, am I right?
Free Thomas. We'll put it. Show's over. We're done.
Sorry, let me just drop this.
Well, he's picking up the mic off the ground. What I appreciate basically is the fact that the episode is more interested in the non-free will version, which would have been what you were saying, where they would have had an argument about, we're different people, everything's different. Right. The episode pretty much explicitly states that if the beams had been reversed, there would honestly be no difference between the two of them. You know what I mean?
Yep.
The Riker that would come back would do exactly what Will Riker did in that situation. I think that's a really interesting philosophical case, not just because I love that sort of the philosophy of free will, but I think it's interesting that the episode embraces it instead of going the more cliched path.
Right, and I think that's why I had a problem when early in the episode they're talking about what happened very casually. Like the way that I guess they've seen a lot of shit at this point, but they're both when they're having their conference room sequence, everyone's kind of like, "Yeah, okay, so there's two Rikers now."
Right. Picard's like, treat him nicely, make him feel comfortable.
But Picard says something to the effect of like, "Oh, imagine meeting your twin for the first time." But it's not the same thing.
No, it's not. Yep.
Because it's literally you on sort of like a different timeline.
Yes.
It's like if
yeah.
I actually thought at first that this was going to be some sort of weird temporal rift thing.
Or clone, did you think? They get rid of the cloning thing right away, which I appreciated.
Right. I thought, I'll tell you why I thought it was a temporal rift thing, because when he first shows up, he's wearing the yellow uniform as like a vest.
Yeah, it's all tattered.
The first thing I thought was, oh, is there some weird timeline where he gets stuck here and like has to eat data or something? Like it looked like he had, because it didn't occur to me that it was just a different person. Yep. I thought he had like killed one of the other guys down there with him and stolen his jacket for warmth.
Worn his skins and just has like a data head on the end of a stick and he uses it to hit people. Yeah, they don't go that route at all. I think that's the smart decision about this show, and it makes it way more interesting, is that he's not a twin. He is you for all that is good and bad. Like, identical twins don't have this kind of conflict where they, the other twin is not living the life, unless it's some kind of Lifetime movie, of the other twin. You don't even get it. You don't even get this in like lore episodes either. Right.
Like, as much of that stuff as you do get from lore episodes, you don't get it because lore is also, he's evil.
Right. Yep.
But this is just literally a different version of you. It's you that made different decisions or had different things happen.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's very unsettling for both the Rikers, and I think it's really like fascinating look at how things go on. It's interesting. Data has a conversation with Worf. He does not mention lore, which I felt was
right. Yeah,
ready to be brought up. Where Data would be like, "I have someone who looks exactly like me." I guess that would have gone against the point of the episode, like we've been saying, if Data had brought that up at that point.
The other thing that's interesting we haven't even talked about, which is another thing that I really appreciated, is it's another theoretical transporter thing.
Yep.
Where the entire thing is a result of power that the transporter has that no one knows that it has, apparently.
Yep.
I think is great, because it's awesome when they have what if scenarios regarding all of this technology.
Right. I mean, the transporter is just screaming for the sort of philosophical debate about what it actually means to be transported,
right?
And whether or not you're the same person when you land somewhere else. I think they kind of smartly, they disguise it a little bit better here. They're getting aware of these kind of issues because they make it kind of seem like this was a 1 in a million shot. That doesn't always happen, although the implications of basically instant cloning seems to be huge in this galaxy at this point with the transporter beam.
Here's a question. Does this episode and the actions of the transporter, if you can call it that, does that imply that transporters have some sort of like data backup file of whatever you are?
Yes, because they've done that in previous episodes where they've compared a transport log to a person's like DNA, basically.
Right.
And they can fix things through the transporter. So
that's right.
It basically keeps a copy of you at all times.
So have they ever done, I know they kind of do, well, I guess they don't exactly do this with the Scotty episode, but have they ever done an episode where they use the backlog on the transporter to basically recreate another version of someone?
I don't think so. That's what it's begging.
Pretty interesting.
That's what it's begging to do, and I don't think they've ever done that. It would be the same with.
If you guys would like to read my fan fiction about how all of this is just about how we get Tasha Yar back on that ship,
you can find it at TashaAin'tDead.com, and it's a
come on, it's a .org.
It's a 300-page screenplay that Hollywood has shot down as being overly
That's just
bloated.
The treatment is 300 pages.
It's a detailed write-up. Yeah, I mean, the same thing would be, we always wondered if someone has a disease, couldn't you just transport the disease out of them, basically?
Yeah. Or, let's say, well, I guess that wouldn't work. I was going to say if someone, let's say they go down to a planet, right? And when they go down to that planet, they get radiation poisoning, and it kills them 2 days later.
Right.
Could you use, like, the transporter Mac time machine function and go back 2 versions and recreate a version of the captain or whoever who had had not yet been affected by radiation.
Right? Yeah. If when Picard gets captured by the Borg, could you just recreate a Picard to save the day?
Oh, that would be awesome.
And just go from there. There's a lot of open. I love the transporter because of what it actually means and how bizarre.
And clearly, nobody knows what it can actually do.
No, they're constantly surprised by. It would be like if we got on a plane and the pilot was like, "Oh shit, I can't believe we're flying through the air right now. This is just insane." Although
we're gonna fly at 35,000 feet and then we're gonna land. I have no idea how that happens, but it happens.
It happens. And if it crashes, we'll just land it again. It'll be fine. Yeah, it's really, really just a weird technology.
There might be 2 versions of everyone sitting in the cabin.
Hopefully there's not a cloud in the sky that could bounce this son of a bitch back on there. Yeah, Tommy Riker. Did you have anything else? I don't want to give this episode short shrift because I like it a lot. Do you think that it's melodramatic? Definitely not as much as it could be. Okay. They could have gone way more over the top. I think the last episode that I did, Frame of Mind, I think is more melodramatic than this. Okay. All right.
One of the other things that they do that I really liked is in the poker scene.
I love the poker scene in this.
Yeah, I love it because you don't see their cards.
Yes.
Yeah. I thought it was really good.
Yeah, no one ever flips. I guess that, or Thomas just gives up at a certain point. But I really love I would have rewritten the last line. I would have had him say, "You always had the best hand." Mm-hmm. I think he hits it a little. He says something else that's a little bit too obvious. He says like, "You've had the best hand now and for the past 8 years" or something, and then he walks out. That's a little bit too much. But I did love the show's making me appreciate how good of a conveyor for storyline poker can be. Yeah.
I also like that we learn that it only takes 8 years to become a master engraver with a phaser beam.
Yeah, he's like, it reminds me of the Meet the Parents, where he's like, it didn't take me that long to hand chiseled it out of a piece of driftwood or whatever the hell.
There's got to be one of those Star Trek edit videos out there where the thing that he hands her is just like either grossly obscene or just a really bad drawing.
It's got to be grossly obscene. It's him as like, it's the A-Rod. Him as like a bull centaur or something. I think that would be.
It's Troi with 3 boobs.
That's how she was originally pitched. It would have been the original thing.
I also really like that apparently Beverly Crusher is DTF.
Yeah. She is the ultimate wingman on the ship, apparently, for Troi anyway.
I'm surprised she wasn't like, hey, if nothing's going on with you guys, you mind if I take a swing?
I've always enjoyed me a little Will Riker. Yeah, that's those two. Even that scene, I think, is showing the maturity of the show. There was do you remember the episode that is always maligned as it's those two basically doing stretching with each other?
Oh, yeah.
I think is it the Trill? I can't remember what episode. It's whatever the one that, it's the, oh, God damn it, The Price. The one with Mark, God damn it, the guy from Silicon Valley, their lawyer. I can't remember that actor's name. He's Lloyd Braun in Seinfeld. It's that episode. But that episode was so cringy, the way they were talking.
The guy from Seven?
Yes, yeah. This one felt a little bit better, or it felt much better. It didn't feel... This episode didn't make me cringe, and I felt like there were a lot of opportunities where I could have cringed in a poorly written episode of it.
I liked the Crusher and Troi part of that scene, but it was really weird when Thomas shows up and he's like, "Hey, Tai Chi, huh? Can I jump in?"
I'm already wearing the clothing. This is very weird.
But it's not Tai Chi. You don't. It doesn't matter. It's all the same shit.
It's Klingon bullshit.
Do you know this one?
Didn't
put my elbow up here.
She pulled a Event Horizon move where she pulled the finger back. That's all I could think about. Check out patreon.com for that in joke.
Event Horizon.
What'd you think of the debut of LeVar Burton as a director?
I cringed when I saw his name, but he did a pretty good job.
Yeah, he did the spinning camera move that you love. He did it like 8 times.
Shit, when did he do that?
In the judo scene, he circles the camera like just repeatedly.
Oh, right.
It's not a dramatic turn, but he does it.
Well, that clearly means that there's one guy on the crew who's just itching to do that.
Yeah,
he's he's always got one like locked and loaded, and he's like, so we do the, want to do the spin?
Doing the spin today.
No, not today. Okay.
How
about now? No.
Not this heartfelt moment.
What about the trombone? You want to spin around the trombone? No? Okay.
We could really get the bell of that son of a bitch in the frame if we just spun the camera a little bit more. Yeah, it's. I thought he did a pretty good job. He's going to go on to be pretty prolific as a Star Trek director. Not in this series, but in most of the other series. I thought he did pretty good, and he has a tough episode for a first directing gig.
Yeah. It's not, I mean, well, I don't know. Yes. It's very tough tonally, and I think he does a really great job. But it's, now I'm thinking about it, I think it shows that he's a better director, at least, than Patrick Stewart is.
Yes, I think that's true.
Because Patrick Stewart ended up having that sort of like film school thing where the episode he was directing wasn't super interesting, so he felt like he had to compensate with a lot of weird camera movements.
Yep.
And this one doesn't do that. He actually does get a lot of good stuff out of the actors.
Yeah, he keeps the 2 Frakes performances online. They're totally different performances. Like, you can tell which one is which. In a vacuum, you could tell which one is Thomas Riker. And I think he just does a really good job of that. I think I'll go to my least favorite part of this episode. Tell me if this part of the episode was inevitable.
Was it Riker's sweet JanSport backpack he has when they go down to the planet?
That was not inevitable. That was a must-have, I guess, would be the definition of that. I think it's the early homage to Generations where the catwalk giving away.
Yeah. I was thinking that too.
I know
I think it might be the same prop, actually.
I know why they had to do it. I felt this episode did not need it. It's so low stakes that it doesn't feel important enough, and also I feel like they come to their conclusion mostly through conversation more than saving his life there. So I understand that they have to do it as kind of the gimmick thing of the episode, and that's how they fix the science problem. I just thought it was unnecessary. What'd you think?
Well, yeah, that's what I was talking about when I mentioned that they kind of fake you out with the killing him off thing.
Sure.
And I totally, I get the same thing where it's like, nothing had really happened. And in another episode, 2 or 3 seasons ago, they would have killed him off, or he would have had some sort of ulterior, motive and would have been a bad guy or whatever. And, the question of personality wouldn't be, it would be more like, this other version of Riker is now hardened and he has a scar on his face or some shit.
Yeah.
How can I be the same person this guy is? That's not the quest. That's the really easy way to do it.
Yep.
They chose a much more interesting and a much more difficult way to tackle it, and they just let it hang. Even that scene, it's kind of there because it needs to be there, and it's a nice little fake out. But after that, it's just kind of like, no, there's 2 of them now. Deal with it.
Yeah. I was thinking as you were saying that, I think early TNG, the solution would have been the problem becomes catastrophic and he sacrifices himself to save.
Exactly.
That's how they would have gotten out of it normally. And this is way better. This is a much better thing. Even to the point of, if you don't know he's coming back, it is weird that he just kind of walks off and there are now two Rikers in the world, which is just kind of fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, cool. Well, I think we're done talking about second chances. So we're going to go to final thoughts. We're going to play an audio clip. And right after that, we're going to come back and give our opinions about second chances.
Do you remember the last time we saw each other?
Like yesterday. The Janaran Falls on Betazed.
It was the day before you started your tour on the Potemkin.
And we were going to meet on Risa 6 weeks later.
We never did.
I know.
No, what I mean is, Commander Riker and I never did. You see, he earned a promotion very quickly.
I know that too. For exceptional valor during the evacuation of the research station on Nervala 4. I've been looking at his service record.
He chose to make his career a priority. There wasn't much time for anything else. We kept in touch, but we didn't see each other again until we were both posted to the Enterprise 2 years later. By then, our feelings for each other had changed. We've served together for 6 years. Things never went back to the way they used to be.
Thomas Riker, Will Riker, second chances. I really enjoyed this episode. So if you guys are on YouTube and you want to say what you thought about it, you can go in the upper right-hand corner of the video. You can click the poll button and you can vote on what you thought on our scale of 1 to 5 you would give this episode. I guess I'll go first because you went first last time. This is a strong 4 to me. It's really one of those second tier great episodes. We talked before in our previous show about what the difference between a 4 and a 5 is to me. This one, I feel this is a better episode than Frame of Mind, just sort of on its face, the face value of what's going on. And I don't know, I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the way that they take the free will discussion. I enjoy the way that they play off the live another lifetime, how the changes would go around. The storyline makes sense. They pair Troi into it nicely. I think everything just really works here. I love all the conversations that the people have with each other. I love that they don't kill Tom Riker at the end. This is kind of the talky sci-fi at its best, I think. For this show anyway. I'm sure there's better sci-fi that talks about stuff, but this is what the show is always sometimes criticized as being too talky. I think this is an episode that shows why they try to do that a lot of the time, and it works really well here.
Yeah. Excuse me.
No problem.
Yeah, I give it a strong 4 as well. Last episode I was talking about how the highest rated episodes for me are the ones that are really great, but you couldn't do them on any other show. They are a great example of the overall concept, and I think this episode is, even though I've seen double episodes done and countless other times, it's never been done like this.
Yeah,
and it's it involves things that are very uniquely Star Trek. So yeah, I would give it a really strong 4. I don't think it's an absolute must see, but it's definitely like after you finish the must sees, this is one you should watch soon after.
Yeah. I think it's a strong second tier of the show, which is, it's always nice. Like it's in some ways, those are my, just for the run through, those are my favorite episodes to sort of stumble across, because they're not the ones that you immediately remember, but you enjoy them as they're going along, and you're like, oh, this one, I should watch this one more. It's not on my standard rotation, but it's a good episode.
Right. When I did a watch through a handful of years ago, I don't even think I watched this one.
Right.
'Cause I was going off of a list of, like the 7 best and the 7 worst for each season or something like that. I don't even think this was on the list.
Yeah. I mean,
which is surprising because it's really good.
Yeah, I would think it's a top 7 for season 6. Definitely when I come out with my top 5, I guess it'll depend on how many of the other episodes get 5s. But yeah, this has been a really strong one. I enjoyed it. I like the discussion about what it goes on. I like the characters that come out of it. All of it's very, very good. Guys, if you enjoyed the content today and you're on YouTube, a like and a comment's appreciated. If you're on iTunes, a rating and review helps get the show out there. You can go to patreon.com/The Podcast. You leave a couple bucks a month and you get exclusive content. We just talked about Event Horizon, and before that we talked about, what the hell was it? Oh, Galaxy Quest. Yeah, exactly. And so if you guys throw a couple bucks a month on the Patreon, we're close to $50 tier level, so you'd get 2 of those a month instead of the 1 that we're currently doing. And if you sign up now, I'll send you the link to the other 2 so you can listen and catch up on those. Otherwise,
that second one is going to be like just bad sequels of great first movies.
Yeah.
So it'll be like Alien and then Alien Resurrection.
Yep. And then Prometheus. And then,
well, I don't know about that. I actually really enjoy that movie.
I'm trying to think of any sci-fi. What's like the? Usually sci-fi is kind of a unique genre that the sequel usually is pretty good, unless I'm blanking on a case where it totally went bad. Maybe The Matrix would be an example of that, where it went bad.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, well, I feel like it depends on how many sequels you get into.
I'm talking about the immediate second sequel.
Oh, the immediate second? Yeah, well, I haven't seen 2010, the year we make contact, or Future World, sequel to Westworld. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, it all depends on your concept, and if you like the sequel to Jurassic Park isn't very good.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Which is one of those weird movies that I think a lot of people forget exists, and even more people forget that it was directed by Steven Spielberg.
Yes. I watched Jurassic Park recently, and I don't know if this is an unpopular opinion. I don't know how good it is anymore.
What?
I don't know. I have a hard time with it. I don't know why.
What?
I don't know why.
With what? You have a hard time with perfect writing?
I have a hard time
and
with
amazing special effects.
The special effects still hold up. That's really nice. I feel like I feel like I'm never captivated by it as I'm watching it. The music is the exception, and the special effects are really good. But
I didn't realize you had it out for great structure.
There is such a thing as too perfect, I guess. You need a flaw to be able to break the glass or whatever. Anyway, guys, thank you very much for listening. Clay, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, no problem.
And
always a pleasure. Thank you.
We will see you probably in season 7 because we are dead at the end of season 6. We have Descent, I think, left.
Man, coming up on the end.
Yeah, and then it's All Good Things is only 26 episodes away.
Which I hopefully I will be on because that's probably my favorite episode of the series.
Yeah, it's a spectacular one. That's one I'm considering whether or not how much editing I want to do in the podcast. If that's a hint.
What you should do is you should get all of your hosts together in groups, and then bounce back and forth between the groups, telling each of us what the other ones thought, and then somehow coming to a single consensus that saves all of humanity.
That was basically my idea, and it's going to be so goddamn complicated. I might do it, but I will have to see how it goes through. I don't know. Anyway, guys, thank you very much for listening. I will see you next time.